Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be trying a bit of a different style of video. As you can see, I'm queuing up a game, but I'm actually not. I'm watching a game that I myself played previously, and this is going to be a different style of video that I hope you enjoy. I don't know if this is going to create for good content, but I'm just going to try to make a video where I talk about my game and walk through it as I go, and talk about any mistakes I may have made, or just my plays in general, because when you're looking back on it, you get a bit of a different perspective. And this is obviously a game I played previously. I think it might have been a few days ago. I'm going to speed up to double speed. This is Flying Pikachu, and you see against Lugia. It plays Archeops, Flying Pikachu, and Aerodactyl V-Star. Obviously, I take my mulligan. Pretty normal stuff here. We are going second, which is obviously not great. We have the path. And now we have some pretty important decisions to make. They're just going to go ahead and set up. And I don't, honestly, as I said, I don't completely remember how this game goes. But I have an idea, and they're just going to, they don't get too much going in the first turn of the game, but they get something. So, yeah, we check their discard, or I check their discard. And so probably the play is to get Aerodactyl, because Aerodactyl allows us to punish them for going for their V-Star. And then let's go back to that play there. So the Aerodactyl V-Star will stop them if they haven't used their V-Star power yet, which is why it's very good. I could have also gone for a Flying Pikachu here. Flying Pikachu V, that being debatably a safer play, as well as, let's see, what was in our deck. I want to see if I had the, that's after I got it. I want to see if I had the Bidoof in deck, which also could have been a strong play. I think I prized it. Did I prize it in this game? I did not scroll all the way through. I don't know if I prized it this game or not. But Bidoof also could have been a valid play. Aerodactyl, though, is pressuring them to force them to use their V-Star power. And then we do draw into the double turbo as well. That's why I didn't attach the energy to anything. So that if we did draw into the double turbo energy, we would be able to be in a very good spot. So now, yeah, I believe this is where I prized my Bidoof, which I should have checked earlier. And yeah, I prized it, so I go for a Flying Pikachu. Flying Pikachu is another very good attacker this matchup because it hits them for weakness. We get off the turn 1 Trinity Charge, so we're in a pretty solid spot. But certainly if they get going and just start messing us up, that's really bad for us. And we don't have much of an engine, especially with that path turning off our own abilities. If they KO us, we're in kind of an iffy spot. So we're relying a lot on this Marnie. But we could have, I don't believe Crobat was in deck, which we also play Crobat. And that was prized. So they're going to also go ahead and play Collapse Stadium. And this is really interesting by them. So obviously they want to draw cards here. But this is a bit of a misplay. And now that I'm looking back on it, I didn't even realize how they misplayed here. But so they chose to, they wanted to Crobat here, which is fair, right? So they started this hand like this. They're wanting to get rid of paths, they can Crobat. So they go in, but they play down their Radiant Gardevoir, which doesn't seem like a bad play. Certainly it can have value in this matchup. And later on, it actually does provide value for them in this matchup. But now, obviously, the goal is to get 2 Archeops into play. It's not horrible if you only get 1, but you'd much rather get 2. And then, so they're going to go ahead and do that, and they need to bump the stadium, and they do it with Collapsed Stadium here. They attach energy. Also, attaching energy, that's fine to draw more cards. But then we see them shrink their bench down. So obviously they're going to go for Crobat play. They're going to draw 5 cards, which is really good. If they had not played that Radiant Gardevoir, they only would have drawn 4. So that's their idea for playing that Radiant Gardevoir down. But now, as you see, they're going to play down their Crobat, and now they only have 1 bench space left. Meaning that they can't accelerate 2 Archeopses into play unless they do some like absurd combo. Probably Scoop Up Net, which isn't absurd, but they probably don't play that. So in this situation, they should have not played that Radiant Gardevoir because now this is limiting them. Unless they're really desperately in need of that Lugia, which isn't an absurd play, but it still would have probably been better to not play that Radiant Gardevoir. And then they're going to go ahead and just put that 1 Archeops into play. Primal Turbo, but now they're in a spot where they can't actually attack us this turn unless they find a switch card. If they do find a switch card, though, they will definitely be able to get the KO. And they also stick a ton of powerful energy on, going all in on this one Lugia. Now it's taking less damage. And actually, with both the V-Guard energy and the Radiant Gardevoir on, reducing the damage, Flying Pikachu will come up 10 damage short. So that's a very important thing. Flying Pikachu, even without double turbo on it, will hit, it will hit 160, double weakness is 320, minus 30 from the V-Guard, minus 20 from the Radiant Gardevoir, hitting only 270. So that's part of why Radiant Gardevoir being in play is good in the V-Guard energy. But then, of course, we can play our Path to the Peak to turn off their Radiant Gardevoir. But we will likely have struggles to get that into play. But, of course, them powering up this Lugia V-Star really heavily, it's a bit it's a bit bold of them, and I believe they're just going to pass this turn here. They're going to actually go for a Capturing Aroma, which is kind of strange because they don't need anything in particular. They literally just fail that. Or I guess they could theoretically try to thin, and then, oh yeah, they're going to research here. So they're trying to thin their deck out. They probably should have actually grabbed something off that Capturing Aroma then. And they're going to Choice Belt. Now they're hitting, I don't know, they're hitting enough to, I think, one-shot the Flying Pikachu now, which is fair. They're going all in. I honestly don't think they needed to Archeops yet and use their Archeops, because having more options to be more in control is just better here. And now, obviously, if we have an ability to go up and KO their Lugia with our Flying Pikachu or something, that's really bad for them, and then they're pretty much out of the game. Of course, we need probably an Arceus V-Star to be able to do that, but that's not crazy. So they should not go all in on this Lugia. And also, they're in a very locked-up board state. They played Radiant Gardevoir, Pumpkaboo, and Crobat, which all provide essentially no value. Pumpkaboo providing pretty much no value, and then Archeops only accelerating energy, so they only have one attacker in play, and they can't play anymore because of that collapsed stadium. So they've locked down their board position in a very negative way for them. You'll see through the course of the game how this changes and how they choose to adapt to that position. But them playing that Radiant Gardevoir is certainly hurting them some. The Crobat, obviously, was pretty necessary to draw them cards, and they had to start Pumpkaboo. And they want to play Lugia, but the Radiant Gardevoir is causing problems. Not that it's a bad card in the deck, but it causes some problems, as you can see. And then, yes, our turn, so we draw Research, so we're going to Research their hands, moderately large, but we don't need to Marnie them. And we actually see a pretty alright hand. But this is actually a very interesting situation that we're in. We can either choose to, one, go for the KO, opening up a prize, a bench spot, and also opening up the ability for them to possibly KO our Flying Pikachu, which is kind of bad. Or we can, and we also need to commit a second double turbo to this Arceus. About a lot of kind of iffy plays, and then we have some other options, but we could also just pass here, and or Trinity Charge, and that's kind of iffy because they're probably going to KO the Arceus, but then they're in a very locked up position where they're not necessarily going to be able to do too much after that. So let's see what play I go for here. I think I go for the KO, and our hand's not that good, so part of us going for the KO here is, and I'm checking to calculate, I believe, the damage on the Flying Pikachu. Then I realize it comes up short, so I realize that I want to go and grab the KO because my hand's bad, and I believe I get rid of Pumpkaboo Ultra Ball. Yeah, because those are just the least useful cards in our hand. Setting up a second Flying Pikachu is valid. Of course, Boss's Orders is a very strong card, and then Double Turbo Energy is also a very strong card. It's necessary for us to attack here. So we're pretty much going to throw down our whole hand except for Boss's Orders here. Oh yeah, I forgot. I still had Starbirth. I don't know how I forgot about that. That's pretty important. But we're going to go ahead and grab a supporter card for next turn and Path to the Peak now. So this is really interesting. Of course, after Starbirth, Path to the Peak generally is a good play. But as you'll see here, it's a bit sketchy. Debatably not the right play here now that I'm looking back on it. And this actually helps our opponent. So I just go and play Path. I'm like, you know what? Playing Path, it's good here. And also part of my mentality is that I'm already opening up their board space by killing their Pumpkaboo. What's one more bench space? Of course, that is 2 bench spaces is much better than 1. You can work with 1, but working with 2 is much easier. So me giving them extra bench space is debatably helpful for them. But also, of course, turning off that Radiant Gardevoir ability is very important. So maybe I should have just saved that Path to the Peak in my hand, because now they can just bump it. And as you'll see later in the game, they will bump it. And so if we need Path in play to one-shot their Lugia, and that's really important, and I choose to play it here, which is a misplay. It's not a horrible misplay, and grabbing it isn't necessarily a misplay, but playing it right there isn't necessary and hurts us a little bit. We could have grabbed something else. I'm not really sure what we'd grab, but the Marnie is certainly fine as well. But also doing the Marnie, that gives them more access to a greater pool of cards. My idea with grabbing Marnie is that it preserves our hand size and also is a bit more versatile, or preserves our cards in our deck, because if we have to Marnie instead of Boss, we don't really want to lose the Boss. And then, of course, I'm going to go ahead here into Trinity Nova, play the Flying Pikachu so we can get our second Flying Pikachu up. And you see that our Arceus is only hitting 160, which isn't great, but we're just going to throw a bunch of energy on that Flying Pikachu. Now, of course, the Aerodactyl, as soon as they use their V-Star power, our Aerodactyl V-Star's V-Star power essentially went offline, providing almost no value. But yeah, they're going to choose to, I don't remember what they send up. Yeah, okay, so they send up Radiant Gardevoir, which is kind of strange, but obviously the idea here is that one, Radiant Gardevoir is like a sacrificeable Pokemon, right? You don't want to sacrifice Archeops. Crobat gives up 2 prizes. It's not that bad to sacrifice Crobat, not gonna lie. I think that would have debatably been a better play. But now they make some interesting play here. And because the Lugia will grab the KO for them, of course, but then they realize that they're going to be KO'd most likely back by Flying Pikachu VMAX. Now, we do have Boss's Orders in hand, and they should kind of know that. But they're going to choose to go in with Radiant Gardevoir, which is definitely a misplay. But you will see, I believe... Do I misplay back? I might misplay back. Oh, no, okay, so they Marnie me here. So it doesn't really matter. They know they're kind of playing around the Boss, or just play with that Marnie. Yeah, they're going to Air Balloon the active. Air Balloon the active here is kind of questionable. Playing Blissey is also kind of questionable. As you can see, the Air Balloon on the active, it's not a horrible play. You got 2 retreat costs, but it's probably better on Archeops or Crobat. Radiant Gardevoir already has energy on it, so you don't really need the Air Balloon. And the Blissey here is kind of weird. So Blissey is not a bad attacker in general, especially in this style of deck, allowing it to get pretty big, but it's actually bad against both Flying Pikachu and Aerodactyl. Flying Pikachu will completely wall it off and stop it from doing any damage or accelerating energy, which is, of course, really bad for Blissey. And then Aerodactyl V-Star just one-shots it by hitting it for weakness. Now, I can't really power it up. I'm pretty much out of energy. But if some way I'm ever able to power up that Aerodactyl V-Star, Blissey's not in for a good time. And then, so Blissey V, playing that there probably isn't the right play, but let's see what they go and do here. And so they're actually going to retreat, which is kind of weird. Like, why do you accelerate to the Radiant Gardevoir and then Marnie? That's probably some missequencing by them, leading to them overcommitting energy. Kind of a weird spot. You'll notice some kind of strange plays by them, but they all have a reason. So they're going to go here. They realize that the path is still in play, though. So the question is, do they have a bump for the path? And I believe they do. Maybe not. No, they... Oh, yeah, of course. So this is... I forgot this during the game, too. That Tempest Dive removes the path to the peak. So, yeah, that's obviously wrong. As you can see, I've made similar mistakes here. But, now, obviously, looking at this hand, I don't have anything, right? I can evolve the V-Star, but I really have no other routes. So, yeah, I only hit for 270 here. That feels kind of bad, especially with them having the KO back, meaning that they only need to take 1 prize after this. That they can, of course, go and target down that Aerodactyl V-Star with no energy on it, no way to attack, and kind of getting trapped in the active. Luckily, we did draw into the switch, which is really nice for us. Then we see the amazing rare Yveltal, and so this is looking like the end. They literally have KO on the active. They have essentially a guaranteed KO from the bench, and you see that they accelerate energies to Yveltal, so they've got to have it soon, right? They need to draw into 1 more energy on next turn, and then they have game. So I'm staring at them. I'm checking the discard pile to see if they're down any energy. They're not. So assuming they have another Aurora or some other type of energy, they have game. And so they're going to go ahead and KO Lugia. Or, sorry, KO excuse me, I'm very tired. KO our Flying Pikachu with their Lugia. But we do draw into Path. We can Raihan and start setting up Aerodactyl, which isn't too bad. We can attach, which I believe we do, and we grab Boss because right now we just need to deal with stuff, right? There aren't too many great plays. We're going to Path to slow them down, turning off some abilities, hopefully stopping them from just winning the game somehow. And I believe they make a misplay here again. Yeah, so they should, you always want to send up Radiant Gardevoir here, right? Because Radiant Gardevoir, it has free retreat, so it's just always the right play. They don't send that up. They send up Blissey, and this is definitely the wrong play now. They could, if they have the energy in deck, they can just win the game with Yveltal. This is showing signs that they don't have the energy in deck. Or maybe they're getting confused and thinking Flying Pikachu stops Yveltal. It does not. It stops Blissey, not Yveltal. So if we're sending a Blissey here is bad, it has unfavorable matchups against both Flying Pikachu and Aerodactyl. So that's very sketchy, and definitely a misplay by them, but presumably they don't have energy in deck to power up Yveltal, which is pretty surprising. Usually if you're playing Yveltal, you have enough energy. They probably play a Horror Psychic in addition to 4 Aurora energies, but they're going to stick a V-Guard on the active, possibly not realizing that they can't damage or accelerate energy because the Flying Pikachu stops the Blissey. They draw Lumineon out of their deck, and they play it. Yeah, I know what some of you might be thinking. This opponent doesn't seem that good. And I don't want to pick on my opponent, but that's probably true. I obviously myself have made misplays, but they've made more misplays. And that's because my elo or whatever isn't very high because I don't play live that much. But they're still playing horribly, and I think it's interesting to point out mistakes that both players make. It's certainly easier to find mistakes in your opponent's play because in your own play, you generally think you're doing everything right. But so they're going to send up their Blissey. And Luminion, I don't know. I guess maybe they forgot about Path, but I'm not sure if that's what they did either. Because they already had a supporter in hand, so I don't know exactly what that play was for. It's not the worst play in the world, though. They don't really need another bench spot, but now they don't really have any answer to the Flying Pikachu other than that Evoltal. But of course, they can just go ahead and hit through the Aerodactyl eventually with Blissey. Now, I don't believe we can KO them here, or I believe we can KO them here, which is good for us. We are going to lose some cards from our deck, but they're not quite going to KO us here, I don't believe. If they did, they'd literally just win. So they're committing all in on this Blissey, which is, of course, a bad play because they don't get the KO. Sure, they accelerate lots of energy, but then they just die. So they're going to do that, and they have 4 powerful energy on them. Definitely enough to one-shot anything, but of course going to go for the one-shot. We actually have a few interesting options here, and I don't remember if I go for it. Okay, so I choose to retreat here. And the idea here is actually because, yeah, I can't go for the KO here. So, of course, going for the KO here is a very strong play. And due to the fact that we get 1 prize away from winning, but then they have their Radiant Gardevoir on the bench, which is guaranteed to KO us if we just KO their Blissey. So that's actually, it's not like a horrible play by them. It seems really bad on the surface, and it's not the best play. But they're not in a bad spot. We got this massive Blissey that can one-shot anything. So they're going to go ahead, and we're going to boss their Evoltal, because that's a scary threat to Flying Pikachu, right? So now if they have Rope, they win, right? If they have Boss, they win. But they don't. They don't have either of those. Hopefully. Right, hopefully. As we see that they're just going to go ahead and Evo Incense thin their deck or whatever. They're also low on resources. They only have 13 cards in the deck. We have 18, so pretty much very late game scenario, of course, here. And we need to KO at 2 Preza here. So they actually go ahead and concede it because they realize that they don't have any answers. So they definitely misplayed out of that. They could have gone for... And this isn't an unwinnable game, but it's a very difficult position to be in, where they can't really set up anything else because presumably they burned energy too much. And that Radiant Gardevoir really, really hurting them. It does provide value. It threatens the Aerodactyl. It stopped the kill on the Lugia. But in the end, it really hurt them because it sacrificed their board scenario. And as I said, we made quite a few mistakes as well, or I did. I shouldn't really be blaming you guys at all. But yeah, I made some mistakes, especially like, I don't know, you saw them. I pointed them out as I went. I should not have played that path that one turn, that type of thing. But yeah, we were able to win a surprisingly close game with some misplays on both sides. But I hope you enjoyed. This is obviously a different style of video for me. But yeah, I want to review gameplay, and if you have games you want me to review, you can send them to me. You can't post YouTube links in the description, but you can say check out my channel, or check out like your channel, or check out someone else's channel and say this video. You can't post the links, as I said, so if you do that, it'll just get deleted. I will never see it. But I'd be interested in reviewing other games. Tell me if you want to see me review some more of my own games, what decks you want to see. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.